and we just talk about deep and authentic and real shit. And this is a safe space. You can be as deep or as vulnerable or as funny or as rebellious as you need. Can you tell us what it is you're really most afraid of?
Being like the friends and coworkers I know who, weren't able to get off the hamster wheel of big business before they were disabled or dead.
I'm afraid of a few things. Ending up alone, I will feel like I failed at that pretty key part of my life, and also I'm afraid of having not really lived up to my full potential and not having left my mark on the world.
Eyes can be open or closed, and let's just have a couple rounds of breath for now. Let's everybody inhale and release. Another big inhale. Grounding ourselves, centering ourselves, coming into this moment. And then palms come to prayer. And create a little gratitude in your heart, in your soul, for you coming to one of these things tonight, coming to this kind of event, because you know it's good for your heart and soul. And what's good for your heart and soul is good for the rest of the planet, too. So you showing up here tonight is helping to change the planet, and I love you for it. Big love. Sit up taller, and then just look around at everybody. Just glance. Just give a little smile. Hey, a little wink.
Namaste.
Perk the lips. Give a little air kiss.
I go like this.
Consentingly, of course. So, everybody, this is Spiritual Expansion Soul Sauce, and we are conducting this evening here at the Creation Station. That's last week what I've come to. I was moved to name the house the Creation Station, along with the studio and everything in here. And the intention of it is to create high vibrational frequencies of love and consciousness and creativity, and to infuse people with those energies into your own energy fields, and then take that away with you, bring it to your own homes, and create things. Just build things, make things, anything, make anything happen. Do it with a more positive intent. Let's do a little introduction. I know we all have been chatting out in the lobby right now, but let's do a little introduction. Tell us your name, of course, and the best memory you have of you with an animal.
A lot of choices. Yeah, really. Someone else.
Thank you. Joe, would you like to start?
Yeah, obviously my name's Joe, because it was mentioned. So when I was a teeny tiny little toddler, I was with my dad, and we went to the Oakdale Mall in Johnson City. It was the first time I'd ever been to a mall, and it was very rare that I did anything with my dad. So we're walking through the mall, and he gets me an ice cream, and he's holding my hand. And eventually we go into I didn't know, but we went into an indoor petting zoo in the mall. And I was distracted because my mom and my sister were in there, and they didn't come with us, so I didn't know how they got there. So while I'm surprised to see my mom and my sister, all of a sudden I feel something tugging gently on my hair. And I was like, what is that? It scared me, and I looked up and there was this huge giraffe head, nibbling on my hair.
How old were you?
I was just maybe 2 or 3. I was very young.
I love that.
And so, I was really scared at first, but then I heard my dad laughing, so I knew it was okay. And then I just instantly fell in love with this giraffe. And it was obviously in love with me. And me and this giraffe were just beautiful buddies for quite a while until he left. So.
It
And
was
then my
an
dad kept
adult giraffe?
What's that?
A full-grown adult giraffe.
Yeah, it was a full-grown adult giraffe,
Okay.
and I'd never seen one before in my life, and we just were like best
Yeah,
friends.
that's an amazing story.
Then on the way home, my dad kept calling me Joseph Giraffe.
Nah.
It's Joseph Giraffe.
And here in the hippie world, when we hear something we like and we want to show appreciation, we give hippie snaps. Chris, what's your name?
I'm Chris, and I'm a big dog person. I've had a lot of dogs. When I grew up in a rural area, and I was out maybe 13 with one of my St. Bernards, and it's the southeast. A thunderstorm was coming. It was summer, and I was sitting in this area in the woods that I really liked. There's a big ravine, and you get a view in far off distance. I could see the thunderstorm with the lightning just slowly rolling in. And I was maybe a quarter of a mile from my home, and my dog was with me. And she was St. Bernard. She was so protective and motherly St. Bernard. And she started getting upset. She was trying to get me to go home. So she would start like whining me and nudging me and trying to yip at me to get me to go home because she was worried about the safety of the storm. And I thought, that's a really cool
Wow. Wow, yeah. She was feeling it.
Yeah.
Dogs are intuitive about that stuff,
Very sensitive.
especially storms.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Dane, have you figured
Yes.
it out?
Well, Dane, obviously. I think, I figured out what it was. There were just so many to choose from, but I think I found the one, which is, so how I got my first, the first of two cats that I have now. I was selling something on Facebook Marketplace. This was 2020 November. I was in a really bad place mentally. Terrible job, pandemic, just horrible. And I was selling the item. It was, I forget even what it was. I think it might have been a refrigerator, like a mini one. Selling it, and then the seller says, "Oh, by the way, we found this kitten in the dirt on the way here. Do you want it?" And I'm like, "Well, what am I going to say? No?" And, so I was really, like, overwhelmed. I was like, okay, I think a cat's coming into my life. Like, what am I going to do? And then I see him, and he was like, my neighbor and I figured he would have been about maybe 4 weeks old, like honestly too young to be away from his mother. But he was there. I could hold him in one hand, and I remembered seeing him, and it was love at first sight. Like, it was like just the most moving experience. And then I had him in my arms that night. He didn't even know how to use the litter box. He was that young. But I just had him in my arms, and I was just so overwhelmed with thankfulness that, like, I can't give up. I can't give up hope yet, because I wanted at least one black cat for up until the time when I met my now ex-fiance. That's when I was contemplating getting one. Didn't get one. Met her. That fell apart. Then here comes what I wanted originally. But it was the most moving experience because it was like, yeah, don't give up because good things can come to you. And then a few months later, my second black cat came to me. Similar, except he was wandering around the neighborhood. But I took him in. Great life now with the two of them. But that one in particular was just so moving. So
Love it. You know how there's that saying about people having or being with their soulmate or even their soul tribe.
yes.
So this happens with animals as well too. Animals are another soul that can be bonded with you from lifetime to lifetime.
Yeah.
Alabrije.
I always thought of them
What's
as
that?
like,
Alabrije. It's a spirit animal.
that's right. I thought of them as like my guardian angels, or my neighbor would say like your spirit guides or your whatever, like your guardian animal that's supposed to be with you. And they definitely are that for me.
And they're there to teach us lessons too. You learned a valuable lesson that day in that you got more fucking shit to live for.
Yes.
And giving care to something and something is to help grow yourself.
Well, grow my heart, because it was just shattered at that time, and so then it grew, and then they were exactly what I wanted. I wanted at least one black cat prior to that, and then took a little while for them.
El
to get
Negro.
more. Yes, and just magical experience. Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing, brother.
The Native Americans call it the animal totem.
Yes.
Mm.
And if you have a experience with any animal that stands out to you, if you look up that animal and totem, you'll get a divined reading like the I Ching or like astrology, and it will always relate directly to what you're dealing with in your life.
I should look up the black cat version of that.
Totally.
Mm.
I also call my cat, my black cat, I call my familiar.
Yeah.
And I think he is. Really.
Nice.
Calabrije.
Every time I've introduced or asked a person to go, I've mentioned their name first. So this time I'm just going to say, hey, you.
You.
Go ahead.
My name is not you, though. I'm Heather. My name's Heather, and I struggle with thinking of things on the spot, but I've had time, so I should. No, I was thinking my last dog I had are probably the most best memories I've had, and I just remember playing in the sprinklers with my last dog. It was just a lot of fun. So I was thinking of that thought first, and then I was like, oh, I remember my childhood dog. And I remember like playing like hide and seek around some parked cars with her, like going around one side of the car, and then she'd like, oh, and then she ran around the other side, and so just playing with dogs. My best memories.
Yeah, that's cute.
That's
They're
great.
so cute. What kind of dog was it?
My last dog was a golden retriever mix, and my childhood dog was a cocker spaniel.
Oh, we had 2 cocker spaniels when I was a kid.
Golden retrievers are so loyal.
Yeah, Sunny, she was
so
amazing.
Sweet.
Yo, buddy. Who are you?
My
What's your
name
story?
is Sajtek, and I've got a lot of animal friends. I've raised many people's animals for them. A lot of dogs, and I always considered myself a dog person until a cat adopted me. And my son was about 1 year old, and my baby mama started talking about having a second child, and I was too spent. I was like, how about another cat? She had a cat. I was like, how about another cat? And I found this little kitten in the alley a few days later, and I lured him in with some fried chicken. And I took him home. He's this gorgeous smoky gray, and we almost named him Play-Doh because anytime you'd pick him up, he would just fucking go limp like a sack of water. Like, he didn't care what you did with him. He was like, pick me up. And anytime I sat down, he would jump in my lap. And he would get real comfortable, and he would purr, and he would start nibbling. He would try to nurse on you, and he would bite you. And I'd smack him, and he'd make a face, and then he'd nibble again. And I'd smack him, make a face, and he'd nibble again. He had no short-term memory. And so we called him Catfish. And he was supposed to be my fiance's cat, but she was like, no, that's your cat. That's your cat. And I really loved that cat deeply. And I came home one day and found him squished open in the front yard.
What?
And it broke my heart because I realized I hadn't acknowledged how much I loved him while he was alive. And I had to really mourn not appreciating him the way that I did when he was alive. But he knows I love him, and I didn't regret letting him be an indoor-outdoor cat because he wanted to chase squirrels and get some booty and shit. He was like, no, I wanted to live. And so yeah, he's a friend for all ages.
Did he get hit by a car?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you, brother. That story took a turn.
Occupational hazard.
Many of you. Okay, so I'm Jason Kears. Thank you all for having me here. Many of you know I'm quite a turtle fan. The turtle is my spirit animal, spirit guide. And I find a lot of joy and love in these little people. And they have lots of personality too, even though people don't think turtles do, they do. I had let a turtle in my house out to play. Let him walk around the house. And I totally forgot about him. and he was walking around the house, and the next, I go to bed, the next day I get up and I'm like, oh shit, where is this guy? I looked all around the whole house. I couldn't find him. And then I remembered we had the back door open for quite some time yesterday, the day before. And maybe he got outside and is in the backyard. So I went out in the backyard, just, walk a straight line right back. And I'm scanning back and forth, taking a step and scanning. And I come to a stop towards the end of the backyard, and I'm like, where? I'm just looking around, and then I literally look right down by my foot, and there's another turtle. Not my turtle. It was a totally other turtle. It's a female turtle, and my original turtle was a male. So I was like, oh my gosh, okay, so pick her up, take her back in the house. And then later on, I find my other turtle. He was underneath the Lazy Boy recliner, and I had reclined the Lazy Boy, and the metal structure that like reclined the chair gouged right into the back of his shell, and it created a permanent indentation. There was some blood on it too. He was fine. He was totally fine. I don't even know if he really felt it too much. He had to have felt it, feel it, but he was fine. And because of this whole story, he's got a concubine. It was an amazing story of love.
Love conquers all.
And he said my story took a turn, right? like I'm gonna tell a story of like fucking like abduction and like abuse and like trafficking. Oh my god, that's priceless. But he's fine. Everybody's fine, and she's happy.
So I've just turtles have and many animals, various animals. They just come to me. I'm a reptile fan, so I love to take in the reptiles. So I've gone through many cycles of reptiles, and so they've all been great. I love it, and I love you all. Let's go ahead and move on to tonight's event. Introducing Sate.
Welcome one and all to the third official Soul Sauce podcast recording. If you've never been here before, it's a very simple format of group conversation. We sit in a circle, blindfolded, and we just talk about deep and authentic and real shit. And this is a safe space. You can be as deep or as vulnerable or as funny or as rebellious as you need to be in this space. Nobody's here to judge anyone. Nobody's here to fix anyone. We're all just here to share who we are and what we feel as honestly as we can. And if we're lucky, this will be the last time Jay and I sit in this seat tonight. If not, we'll be happy to hop in here and tell some stories ourselves. But what we're really here for is to hear your stories. What we're really here for is to chat with each of you. And that's the format, is each one of you will have your opportunity to come and sit in what we call the share chair or the soul seat. And we're just going to ask you some questions. We're just going to chat, You're just going to put on a blindfold and we're just going to chat. And we're going to let it go wherever it needs to go. And to the audience, we invite you to keep your eyes closed as well. Some people have trouble with that, and you're welcome to keep your eyes open if you want to. But if you close your eyes, you will listen at a different level. You will hear things that you will not hear with your eyes open. And for everyone that has the courage to share, we thank you. This is a safe space. You are amongst friends, and anything you don't want used later, just tell us. We're not we don't. Nobody signed a a release form. We can't do anything y'all don't want us to do with it. So don't worry about your privacy. Just be honest, and we won't use anything you don't want us to. We're just here to jam, y'all. We're just here to share souls. In Hawaii, they call it talking stories, right? So we're here to talk stories. And thank you all for coming. And the theme for tonight is fear and anxiety. Fear and anxiety. So not every question we ask will necessarily relate directly to those two, but that's where a lot of our thoughts are going to go, is let's really talk about our fears. Let's really talk about our anxieties, especially at this moment in our country's history, at this moment in our supposedly great economy dissolving in front of all of us. But everything's great, and every country losing their minds, and World War III is right around the corner, and everybody wants to talk about civil war. Let's talk about fear and anxiety, because shit's coming to a head, y'all. And if not us, then who? And if not now, then when? Thank you for coming. Let's get started. Who's up first?
Chris, you look like you're ready.
He
bro.
volunteered.
Just jump right
he
up,
volunteered. Man. I love it.
Champing at the bit there.
Chomping at the bit.
He's got some stuff to say.
Grab a blindfold.
And
any color.
You got extra height, so I'm gonna check the.
Yeah, I volunteered tonight. The timing of this meeting worked out well for me. I'm Chris. I know most of the people in this room here. And this is my first time sitting here in the soul seat. I was thinking about coming over here for this discussion tonight, and then I'm not the youngest person around anymore. I met with a financial planner this afternoon, and one of the greatest fears of people, one of the greatest fears that people have in life is you have to work till you die, or if you think you're going to retire, that you're running out of money. And so it's just a really stressful meeting that I had, which just sort of brought up a lot of longstanding issues that I've had, struggles around that. And I thought I'd come over here and talk about this almost as a cathartic thing for me. Because honestly, about 3 hours ago, I was stressed, sitting in that guy's office, stressed to the point that I was kind of having chest pains. And that's just, anyway. So that's what I want to talk about.
Your finances?
Yeah. And, I realize in the grand scheme of life, I'm very fortunate compared to what most people have. Mm-hmm. But I really need to get off the sort of the big corporate hamster wheel that you got to run on all your life, that kind of thing, And so I'm, and realistically, I'm grateful. But at the same time, I'm older than some of you guys, and I've got to know a bunch of people my age who are already either disabled or dead. And statistically, that's not likely to happen, but it wasn't likely to happen to my friends either. Mm-hmm. So, it's not even so much the money, but it's the brevity of our life and how short our lives are, and how we have to spend so much time trying to create economic stability by chasing money. So it's not money for material purposes, but it's money for safety for yourself and your family. And for you guys who know me personally, I drive a 20-year-old truck. I buy my clothes at Goodwill. That's how cheap I am. Mm-hmm. And,
dude, you've been working for the bank for 25 years or something?
Oh, God, it's a lot longer than that. Hang on.
Shit.
89, 99. I got to have a spreadsheet. It's a long time. But yes, it's just, a lot of it's just job burnout tied into the financial thing, too.
So can you tell us what it is you're really most afraid of?
Being
like the friends and coworkers I know who, weren't able to get off the hamster wheel of big business before they were disabled or dead.
So is it death that you're most afraid of?
I thought that question would come up during this discussion, and I don't think I'm even afraid of dying at all.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'm really afraid of that at all. I'm probably afraid of being physically disabled more than I'm dying, actually. But because I know we're all going to die. It's a given. That's not necessarily fear, but it's just being at a point in life where I can sort of like get up in the morning and kind of control my own time and not have to spend my day focusing on trying to get money for security and to cover basic living expenses, that thing. It's just so much nicer if you can just sort of get up in the day and just like you just own your own time. Because at the end of the day, all we have here in our life is just time.
So it sounds like you desire a life not dependent on a corporation.
Yeah, or just hustle. Well, I mean, everybody, or depending on having to hustle as much as you do sort of in the big corporate world. I don't mind working, but, it's a big difference when you're working, doing something that you don't mind doing versus something you really don't like or find gratifying.
And you don't like what you do much, do you?
Not really. I mean, nobody really likes their big corporate life.
Can you tell us what you do?
Yeah, I'm in banking, which I'm here in Charlotte, North Carolina, not a big surprise to anybody. But the banking crisis was so bad for so long, I have to go out of like new business lending into like distressed debt workout. So all of my clients are typically family-owned businesses, not giant corporations, but pretty good-sized family-owned businesses. But they're all having such financial problems that I have to foreclose on their office buildings, foreclose on their truck fleets. And they file personal bankruptcy, and sometimes they lose their homes. And it's just a drag after a while, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I can feel
it's
the
bad
weight
karma.
of that.
It's bad karma.
I can feel the weight of that. You're like the car repo man, but
but that's not consistent with my values.
Tell us about that. What are your values?
I don't know. I think my values, I'm the secular humanist. I grew up religious, but the organized church has a lot of things wrong with it. So I'm more of a secular humanist kind of person. And that secular humanism, environmental protection matters, animal welfare, human rights, children's rights, women's rights, everybody's rights. Well,
in theory. in that I was like, I don't know how many protests I've been to, but
I think more in the context of you said what are your values? Those are my values. Those are the things that are important to me as a human.
Gotcha.
And nice to meet you, Joe. I couldn't remember we met here. Then I looked at you again. I think we may have met at a political event one time. But I know I've met you before. Anyway, so yeah, that's it. So, the whole stressful money thing is just, it wears everybody down. Everybody's got to earn a living. So.
Question.
Yes, sir.
So, are you afraid if you stop working that you just don't have enough money to make it till
you
death?
Till you die.
Well,
or what's the real root of that?
What's the real fear?
It does segue back not so much to fear thing, but I guess it's a lesson learned within my family of origin from my dad. And my dad is a really, really good man. He was very hard on me as a kid, but he was that way because that's the way his dad was on him. That's all he knew.
Good justification.
Well, that's true. That's all he knew. And come on, Jason. Up until maybe a generation ago, the only acceptable emotion for men was anger.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with it, man.
Yeah,
I grew up there too.
Anyway, that's when I was young. But he's a really good man, and he's not 2 or 3 times too. When I was young, starting out life, he wasn't able to give me vast sums of money, but he came up with a little bit of money to help on a down payment on our first house, which, when you're a young person, you're struggling, that's a big deal. And then I think one time we had an unexpected, really expensive roof repair, and he helped out a little bit on that. And then, so I'm not just worried about running out of money for me. I've got my daughter. I want to be able to do for my daughter at least as well as my dad did for me, and that stuff. Mm-hmm. And honestly, at this point in my life, I really worry about my daughter a lot more than I worry about me. But, so...
is your dad financially okay?
Well, yeah, he is. He's a farmer. He's land poor. So yeah,
He's what?
land poor.
Land poor. What does that mean?
Land poor means you don't have any cash, but you got a lot of land.
Hmm.
But now it is, there's a big difference in
So
farm.
it's like wealth on paper.
Yeah, it's a typical farmer. You're land poor. You don't have any cash, but you got land.
Mm-hmm.
And, which is valuable, but it's also an extremely, extremely illiquid asset. When you go out to some really rural areas, I mean, think about it. Sometimes you'll drive through really rural areas and you'll see a big piece of farmland with a for sale sign. You might drive by that thing 5 or 10 years.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
I think you said you got like 300 acres or something.
it's more than that. But yeah, so I still have my dad, and I'm just so grateful for that. For any of you guys that don't know, I was down there 2 weeks ago. He had a knee replacement. I was hoping to get back this weekend. I don't know if I'll make it or not. But to be 83, he's doing pretty good. But knee replacement's a big deal.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Tell us how fear manifests in your life, which is what we tend to call anxiety. Tell us how anxiety manifests
Well,
in your life.
a couple of hours ago, I was having chest pains.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's been a long time since I've done that. I've been a lot better off than I was a few years ago. A few years ago, I was, different economic environment. It was a different point in my life, so I still had bigger life expenses ahead of me to meet as a dad. And so I was more worried back then. It's different, and I was really stressed out then. I was having chest pains all the time, and I couldn't sleep. It was a really stressful life. So I've been a lot better. I've been a lot more. Try to use healthier lifestyle coping habits. I try to surround myself with people who are good energy for me, and generally share my values. And I exercise a lot more. I try to get outside in the sunlight a lot. That helps me. So those are all, anxiety management things. So I'm very conscious about doing those things like that, which help me manage the anxiety. So I've been okay for a pretty long time, honestly, usually, up until I had that meeting this afternoon. That sort of triggered me. So I came over here and thought I'd unload with you guys. So thank you for letting me come over. The timing was so fortunate.
You're welcome.
The universe
Thank you
does
for...
send you what you need exactly when you need it.
Amen. Amen.
Isn't
Thank you
that
for
amazing?
bringing your vulnerability to us.
Question.
Yes, sir.
In knowing that you have these fears and anxiety of, I guess, running out of money before you're dead and maybe not having enough to pass along to your daughter.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
What do you think would help you relieve yourself of that anxiety and that fear?
Well, I think we all have that, honestly, all our lives. But as we get closer to death, it's just not going to happen. You're probably not quite as worried. But
you know other people. You got something in your mind that would help you with all of that. What
He's
is
asking you to imagine your own solution.
Yeah. Except today was a particularly bad day.
Mm-hmm.
Except just get up tomorrow, go for a walk early in the morning in the bright sunlight, hopefully. Minimize my screen time. Take a conscious break to go, do some yoga stretches or maybe even sort of deep breathing for a few minutes in the middle of the day, and just try to be mindful. Because when I do that kind of thing very regularly and consistently, I'm better. I'm not crippled by fear. Today was just a bad day because I had that damn meeting. So,
is there a possibility that you already have enough money?
Probably. See, that's the fear. Because you might be fine. Who knows how long we're going to live.
That's the challenge of abundance, brother, is it's a perception. It's not a number. It's not a number.
Yeah,
it's a perception.
So, yeah.
So you just said possibly. Yeah. Possibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what would you need to understand to make that a reality?
For you, what perspective would you
what moves it from a possibility to, you know what, I'm fucking good no matter what?
I don't know, Jason. If I could predict the future, then that's definite, man. Then like that.
Spoken like a real money man. Yeah. Spoken like a real spreadsheet.
The future, you're gonna be set, brother.
Well, then
we can do that, can't we?
Totally. There is no insurance on reality.
I know.
There are no promises.
I know.
Question.
Yes, sir.
is it possible that nothing needs to happen externally of yourself other than you just recognizing that you are good?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks. I'm working on that quite a bit.
Thanks.
I am. No, I'm serious. I'm serious.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
really been deliberately, consciously working on that. So anyway,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I
Well,
don't
how
really,
you been working on it?
It's a profound question, and everyone can ask themselves that. It's a profound question.
well, trying to shift my mindset
Mm-hmm.
a lot. I've been trying to do that, and it can be done, but it's difficult to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And my daughter wants to go to grad school. I was like, okay. She's finished college with no student loan debt. Thanks, Dad.
Mm-hmm.
God, grad school too.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like she's going to be taking care of your ass anyways, man.
It's a big weight. It's a big weight.
Come on, is she going to be like
It's a big
2 more
weight.
years? She's making way more money than you ever thought about. Is that it?
I don't know.
Not in this economy.
Probably not.
Who knows?
Not
What's
in
she
this
doing?
economy.
She wants to go into mental health, and
Hello. There's plenty of demand there.
There's a lot of demand there. Well,
A lot of demand. Is there going to be money to pay for it?
That's
Is
what
the
I'm saying.
question.
There's steady employment. I've been researching salaries for, and the salaries aren't that great, but there's steady employment. Oh, there's steady employment for sure.
Is there any possibility that you may be passing along your anxiety of this situation to her?
Oh God, I know I have.
Thank you.
I know that.
Thank you.
Well, then what's to your advantage to continue this thought pattern?
Oh, I don't know. Just fear of things not turning out the way you want them to turn out.
Okay, well, that's a great excuse.
Well, but there's just fear.
Yeah, exactly.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
So
We all fear what we fear.
Yeah.
We all fear what we fear, and the key is to be willing to really look at it.
Yeah.
And inside of each one, what we find is nothing. It's a boogeyman. Every fear is a boogeyman.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
hey, fear question.
Yes, sir.
Sometime way back in the past, sometime way back in your life, what were you once fearful of that you got over, and how?
Great question.
Oh, man. Hell. So I grew up and I realized fantasies aren't real.
Tell us more.
So, I guess I learned more and realized that certain initial perceptions that I had were not correct because I gained additional knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So,
could you please lay it out, elaborate? What did you think? What did you discover? How did that change your life?
Well, I discovered that hell wasn't real, but thanks to some personal evolution over the last couple of years and a lot of new friends I've met, I've concluded that hell is real, but it exists only inside our minds when we hold on to self-defeating thoughts and beliefs.
Amen. Amen.
And then that is hell. So in that regard, hell is real.
Mm-hmm.
So, the
self-perpetuating belief.
Mm-hmm. So the childhood, church-based fear of hell is long gone, but then there's also just the sort of hell we inflict on ourselves through our own beliefs.
I heard the metaphor of hell is not a place you're sent to; it's a place that the door's locked from the inside.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a great party, and then you're locked, crying in the bathroom.
That's good.
Yeah. Nice analogy. Yeah. Nice and a great party, and you're locked in the bathroom. Yeah. Damn.
Oh shit. Okay, I like that. Mm-hmm. Okay, well then, extrapolating what you had just said about growing up being taught about hell,
mm-hmm.
figuring out on your own that it was all a bunch of bullshit. Maybe I'm paraphrasing your words.
Your conception of it has changed.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
And how it now has affected your life, then is there any sort of lesson in that analogy that can apply to your current fear of finances and your employment grind?
That was a very ridiculously complex question.
I was going to
Yeah,
say,
we're
just
working on it.
it's so
It's fucking
complex.
Let me know if you need cliff
like-
notes.
Hang on,
It's like a fucking equation.
I don't know. I'm just.
What if?
Okay.
You think I got notes?
What if
think I know
you
what I'm
raise the
saying?
3 to the x by the pi times the cube?
Your question was so long that I lost focus on it, and I
Yeah.
remembered a childhood memory that I was going to share with you.
Oh, please do. Please
So,
do.
I talked about my dad. You know, I did not work in banking that long ago, but my dad, I remember I was like a teenager. My dad had borrowed a bunch of money to buy a bunch of new farmland that was relatively expensive for our family. And that's when prime rates went up to like 25%. So my dad was left paying credit card rates on all his loans on this land. And, you know, land's a non-income producing asset. You know, you got to farm it. You got more expenses to associate with it.
Yeah.
And it was a really stressful time for my family, and I internalized a lot of that stress from my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, and we replicate our same-sex parents so often.
Yeah.
You know, most of us do that. And so, and I acknowledge that. So, by and large, I'm super, I'm super grateful that I still have my dad. And he's the best man I've ever met in my life. I'll never be half as good a man as him. And I replicated him in a lot of ways, but in a lot of other ways, I haven't done that well. But anyway, so I think I might be done talking about this because it's starting to bother me a little bit emotionally when all I wanted to talk about was when I was just triggered by this meeting with Planner this afternoon. Anyway,
Dude, you know what? We're like you're right at prime time right now, though.
well,
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Wait.
that's the
All right,
real
I'll stay
that's
there.
the real. But if you want to bail, we'll let you.
no, I'll stay. I want
Okay,
somebody else
okay.
to come up though. Somebody else has to agree to come up. Who's
Well,
gonna come up next?
we'll get to everybody. We got time.
Okay.
time. But look, you just led down a certain little path right here.
Yeah.
And I felt the emotion, and I feel like that's important.
Is the fear and anxiety that you are experiencing now with all this financial stuff, is it actually yours,
Oh God, no.
or is it your
Mm.
father's?
It's my grandfather's. My grandfather's typical, you know, poor Southern family during the Great Depression. He had to drop out of school when he was in 6th grade and go chop wood and help pick corn. That's having enough money for his younger siblings to have shoes to wear to school.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Great Depression poor.
Wow.
And till the day they died, all my grandparents, till the day they died, they said, "Lord, I hope I never see Hoover Days again. I hope till the day they died, they said that." So they grew up through that. So my dad internalized that too, and then I've internalized that from my own dad.
You have received generational poverty thoughts.
Yeah, yeah.
You still think you're a poverty-stricken sharecropper.
Sharecropper.
It's funny, Jason. You saying that triggered me something that I was thinking about myself maybe about a year or maybe 2 years ago. I was just sitting around being kind of pensive and reflective, and I was thinking, you know, I feel like the wolf's always at the door. The wolf's always at the door. The wolf's always at the door. And that, you know, that's just the nature of life, really. So in the real world, I realize that I'm actually quite fortunate.
Thank you.
I know I'm very, very fortunate.
Yes, sir.
And I'm grateful for that, but I just wish I did not have this persistent thought that impedes my ability to be more appreciative of everything that I do have, which is actually quite good.
Amen. Amen. Very well said.
So there's just this lingering thought that I keep trying to modify and I keep trying to tamp it down. And I do a lot better job of tamping it down than I was a few years ago. But I was just triggered today by the meeting. So then the universe sent me what I needed today.
Well, thank you for sharing. Do you guys have any questions? Any comments?
I wanted to ask more about, you said what was the word you used? Replicating your dad?
Replicating my family, the familial behavior on my father's side of my family.
Yeah, it just occurred to me, I think it's very important for you to know that you are not your dad. You're not supposed to be your dad. You shouldn't replicate your dad. You should just honor who you are. And you can honor your dad and you can admire your dad, but you're a beautiful man with your own uniqueness, and I think that's important. You should know that.
Oh, God, thanks. Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Well, I
Thank
guess
you.
just piggybacking off of that a little bit.
Sincerely, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, just piggybacking off of that. I mean, everybody's a product of their environment. Everybody's a product of which parent they take after more, and we're all pieces of it. But it's what we choose to do with what life gives us, and you have the choice to, go forth into the unknown courageously, or feeling like the past is an indicator of the future. And I'm sure in the financial world that there might be some projections that you could make and try to apply that part of your brain, but when it comes to your own self, you have the freedom and the ability with which to take the good parts of what you grew up with and whichever parent you take after or whatever. Define your past, take the good parts of it and orient it towards a better future for yourself. You have that power. It's not something that, there's going to be unforeseen circumstances, but it's not over till you say it's over.
Yeah. Yeah.
As long as you don't give up.
Love it. Thank you. Anybody else?
I do want to mention that the job kind of stuck out with me, and I was curious if you've ever thought about getting a different job. I know you probably feel stuck that you need.
Well, I do, but it's just the older you get, the harder it is to find a job. I tell all my friends who don't look like me, the ones like female, black, brown, whatever. I said, when I was really young, I don't think I realized how prevalent discrimination still is. But as I've grown old, I realized, age discrimination is prevalent too, and it really is. And also, you've got certain financial needs. And honestly, to be perfectly honest with you, nobody can predict the future. But given where we are on the economic cycle right now, if I have to keep this job, I think I'm in a pretty good spot. Because it's bad karma, but it might be a good place to be right now.
You're probably good on benefits and stuff like that, too.
Yeah.
You're coasting, bro.
Yeah.
You already, you know what?
I feel would look like at you and say, that guy's got a lot.
Yeah, I know.
I think you know this, and it feels like that you already know that you're sitting in a very good position.
Yeah.
And it's only a matter of just turning your consciousness a little bit more to an abundance mentality rather than the scarcity, fearful mentality.
I agree.
It's like you're sitting on a literal pile of gold, afraid you're gonna lose it, where like other people are struggling to keep their lights on.
I know.
You know what I mean? And it's like don't punish yourself with this fear of what might happen when you're in the middle of this beautiful experience of abundance. Don't miss that appreciation.
I will share one thing here too. Here on this podcast, that I've talked to a number of you guys one-on-one before. I've had depression issues. I'm okay now, but also maybe it was also triggered by the time of the year it is, because I still have SAD, seasonal affective disorder, really badly. December and January is also a terrible time for me. This is February. I'm getting better. I'm a lot better than I was back in December. But then, so maybe I still have lingering, just because today I have the lingering SAD issues, and then the meeting, and then the universe gave me a chance to come talk about this with my new friends.
Thank you for sharing, brother. Yeah. Proud of you.
What can you say just to wrap things up, and like what was good about this for you, bro?
Every time I have been to a Soul Sauce event, it has been good for me. I've just not always been this vocal, but they're always good.
You really spoke up today, man. I'm proud of you.
Cool. Thank you
for
bringing it.
One final interjection. So if you're fearful of bad karma or your soul being eroded in your job or whatever, that is a prime opportunity to supplement it with whatever you are interested in, volunteer works, hobbies, whatever, something you feel is more rewarding, because it's not the fact that you have means that is the problem, or you're in an environment that can give you that. It's what you do with it, and do you allow it to rot your soul or not? Because there are a lot of people who wish that they had what you had, and so it's a matter of it only rots your soul if you allow it to. So it's just a means to an end.
Amen.
Dan, you made the comment. I will share something. I think it's funny. Another related comment, because you talked about it rotting your soul. A zillion years ago, my MBA program was an international MBA program. So I spoke German pretty well when I was young, and I was actually renting a room during an internship in Germany from this woman, and the woman's son was just a few years older than me, and he came back home to live at his mom's house. And his name was Martin Donalis. And I was like, well, Martin, why did you leave? Why did you come back to your mom's house? He goes, ich hatte bei die Bank arbeitet. Die Bank hat meine Seele verstört. I worked at the bank. The bank destroyed my soul. I was like, then Martin was 28 and I was 23. Martin was right. So.
Yeah, but that's why you get. Well, there's a reason why, like a Wells Fargo or something, while they'll support a charity or they'll do whatever. It's like, yeah, because when the acquisition of wealth is all that you care about, it does rot your soul.
Yeah,
I know. But again, the wealth part is not necessarily good or bad. It's what you do with it.
Yeah,
and
I understand.
Where you place your emphasis. So
yeah, I got it.
If that's a risk factor, then there's ways around it.
When you finally retire, what are you going to do?
Worry some more.
Everybody has a different definition of retire. I met all you guys through yoga. There's a yoga instructor. Darn, I'm drawing a blank. Her name is Mary something right now. She teaches periodically at Harris Y. And she still has a job. She's a physician's assistant, but she's maybe, I don't know, we might be the same age now, but she is a competitive swimmer in her class. So she literally flies to meets in Florida and in California. And she teaches a lot of yoga classes. And she's repeatedly commented, there's just not enough fitness and wellness instructors for people our age. So, so I guess people out like this retire and sit. I'm more like in the kind of retire and keep going, but something that's more consistent with my values and that brings me happiness and lets me meet cool new people. So I don't know. Anyway, next.
Love it. Thank you, brother.
Chris, that was awesome. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Who's next? Joe?
Okay, I'll empty the old bladder here.
Yeah, good to do it on
Okay, awesome. Start out, just tell us your name and tell us anything you want to about fear or anxiety, and then we'll just ask you some questions.
All right. Well, I'm Dane. I came to one a couple weeks ago of these soul sauces, and fear and anxiety. Now, I used to be, I think, a very fearful person growing up because, I grew up religiously and with a overprotective family and stuff like that. So I was afraid of everything, even stuff that I should not have been afraid of. And my mind, I had an overactive imagination, and so my brain would make up a lot of fears, and so it kind of dominated my life for quite a long time. And I kind of made a decision to overcome as many of those fears as I possibly could, and one after the other, they started to fall away, which is good because, you can't allow fear to control your life. And because if you do, it really pushes you into a lot of areas that you don't want to be pushed in. But as you grow up, some things happen to you that are perhaps a bit more legitimate fears or things that affect you personally. And I remember I think it was a Deepak Chopra quote about the things we fear the most have already happened to us. In other words, we don't want to repeat a lot of the bad things that have happened to us again. And so I guess in my case, what worries me now is kind of a combination of what has happened to me in the past that was painful, wanting that to not come back, as well as how the conditions of the world as it exists now are not really working in my favor with which to bring about that goal. Case in point, and many of you know, I was engaged to be married back in November 2019, and that fell apart. The engagement happened around June, fell apart in November, and it was absolutely devastating and made me have suicidal thoughts and stuff like that. And, it took a long time to get kind of out of that bad mindset. It can still haunt me to this day if I try, but it doesn't have to come back with quite the same degree of pain or anything like that anymore, because I've made a lot of advancements in my life. However, what does, I guess, worry me now is just that prospect of finding someone new that could not happen realistically during the pandemic, in any kind of serious way. But then it's like you get out there in the world and you meet people who just, it feels like you woke up on Mars, and people that you meet just fundamentally do not speak your language, and it just seems like they forgot basic things that we all should have remembered from when we grew up, and about why this stuff is important, and why, family connections important, why, living alone the rest of your life, why, trying to say that that's a strength, why that's not really true, and why it's not really gonna result in a good society and that kind of stuff. That results in a lot of like depressive, angry feelings for me now, but where it can manifest in fear and anxiety is just, that feeling like you're running out of time, that your realistic window with which to find someone who could like you, let alone love you, that it's shrinking the older you get, because the people your own age are often, already paired up by now and probably have been for a while, and the field shrinks the older you get, and your own desirability it shrinks the older you get. And so then that leads to other anxieties about, like, well, if I did find someone, you know, would I have to sacrifice a lot of who I am in order to make it work? Would I find someone that I did really share, that did share my values? If I did, where would I go? What should I do? You know, there's a lot of anxiety around that, like trying to figure out what that path is, how to crack the code. And then there's the larger issue of, well, is it even worth it? Because, well, as we spoke about in the beginning, there is a mass existential crisis that's facing the world. It happens. Every single story I read is about people feeling more lonely, more isolated, not experiencing key life milestones as early as they used to. The death rate being higher than the birth rate in this country and in other countries. I mean, I don't even go looking for them; they just find me. And it's like mainstream news everywhere you look, and nobody really seems to care about it to the degree that I do, because I know that affects everything about the society we hold dear. And so there's I guess, an anxiety factor of, like, I didn't ask to be born in this world. I would have been better off at a time when people really did value those things, and when they acted upon them, to where it wasn't this hard to find someone that you connected with who also shared your values and stuff like that. And then there's the additional anxiety of, like, okay, I found all those things. Could I realistically afford to have, a child? At this point, no, I could not. I'm trying to support myself, and, I am not overflowing with abundance like some of us are. And it's like, well, that would be great to be in. What a great position that would be. What a great problem to have that would be. And so that's number one, because meanwhile, the idea of having a family, that has now become a luxury of the wealthy. And that's a very big problem, because without that, we've got nothing. So, that's a genuine fear I have. Plus, let's take that away. Another genuine fear I have is, like, well, I have had a lot of chronic health problems and stuff like that. I wouldn't want to transfer that to the child potentially, or if I did, want to have the means by which to, take care of it as quickly as I could. But it's like there's just a lot of compounding. If it's not one thing, it's another. But, like, at this point, it's just that, what kind of a world? It's really rough out there, is what I'm saying, and it should not have to be this hard to find just a very simple thing, and or what you would think would be a simple thing, and also just that fretting about my time's running out, the time is short with the world, with my own life, my own ability
old are
to
you,
do this.
Dane?
32. And
Just about collecting Social Security.
I know.
And what
I
is
had
it that you're most afraid
I had
of?
to park my my rascal scooter outside. This place is not wheelchair accessible, and you should be ashamed of yourself. But what were you saying?
What is it that you're most afraid of?
Ending up alone, and I think that I will have really failed. I'm afraid of a few things. Ending up alone, I will feel like I failed at that pretty key part of my life, and also I'm afraid of having not really lived up to my full potential and not having left my mark on the world by being everything I could be. And that's why I'm on the journey I'm on right now, to try to be the absolute best person I can be and hopefully get my message out there to as many people as I can, to try to remind them that, you know, these things about human connection, family, these things are not optional. You know, we act as though they are optional. They are not. You know, they are the foundation of everything that is worth having in this life. And we need to remind ourselves of that and act upon it. And we can't just settle for this life that we're all, you know, being told is the norm now, is just people being isolated and lonely and, you know, not pursuing that which makes life meaningful. So I will not stand for it, and I will not sit idly by and let that be my life, let alone anybody I come in contact with. So partially it's a call to action, but partially it's a, well, what if I still get left behind in the midst of all this? Because I would hate for that to be my fate. And also just like, where do I go to find someone that would actually like me, let alone who I would like? You know, where's that store where I can pick one of those off the shelf? You know,
Dane,
it doesn't happen.
what is the mark you want to leave on the world?
Well,
Question.
I guess the most broad answer to that question would be kind of golf course rules, which is you leave it better than you found it. But I guess specifically it would be, well, I wanted to be a great artist when it came to filmmaking and stuff like that, and I still could do that, or I want to do a lot of things, you know, that plus like write novels, write not nonfiction pieces, expand my YouTube channel with my own message and things like that. Try to get people to think, open their minds, and get them to see the world a little bit more like how I do, and hopefully in a way that's positive and enriches people's lives. I want to, you know, after having gone through what all I've been through and come through the other side, I really want to bring out the light that's in other people and to remind them that they are reflections of higher order values that they can embody, kind of that platonic, you know, sense of ideal forms and stuff like that.
Damn.
Yeah, I want to just get people to they're not just here to be flesh and blood and die and that's it, you know, and so we can be as hedonistic as possible in the meantime. It's like, no, you are special. You can make this world better if you believe in that and you act upon it. And I'd rather that everything I did from now on was rooted in that. And, you know, but it's just a matter of,
Really turned your nihilism into something good.
I never really, I guess I had a nihilistic streak, but it was never that intense. It was more of just that unearned, cynicism of the young that, you know, the more that life kicks you in the ass, the more that you realize, you know, you really just need to grow up and you need to get your priorities in line. But yeah, I reject it wholeheartedly, you know, that we need to always pursue that which enriches us. And, you know, but it's just a matter of, I guess the fear factor is, well, you say that, does it fall on deaf ears? Does it ultimately matter? And because I always feel unfulfilled in my life, and it is, again, manifests mostly as depression and anger, but often there's the anxiety factor of, what do I have to change? Where do I have to go? What do I have to do? What more can I do that I am not already doing? You know, that kind of stuff.
Can you tell us more about that unfulfillment, that feeling of unfulfillment?
Yeah, like I feel like if I were born in like 1950, you know, by now I would have like 5 kids, a house, you know, probably would have served in the war, stuff like that. Like, and admittedly, it was a lot easier for families to do that because the gap between rich and poor wasn't as large, and there was more domestic industry and all these other things, that contribute to it. And none of these things exist in a vacuum. But it's the point is, life milestones happened a lot faster in the old days than they do now, and to a certain degree, you could argue, well, maybe in some areas it's not so bad. Other areas, it's like, well, people aren't even. There are a lot of people now that aren't even learning to drive until they turn 18, when you can just go and get your license. You don't even have to have a learner's permit. They're not. They don't really care to do that, or like they will not date because they're afraid of whatever STDs, physical safety, whatever the thought is. There's all kinds of, and of course the pandemic didn't help that feeling of helplessness.
Are you trying to live your life by standards of the 1950s?
I wouldn't say that. I use that just simply as an illustration of, I think that my idea of when a personal milestone should have hit is more compatible with that time than it necessarily is now. And some of that admittedly is because, well, the world is a fundamentally different place, and people, and like I said, children are now kind of a luxury of the wealthy, and that's sad. But it's more of like, I have certain standards that I feel like I haven't fulfilled in my life, and certain things I wanted to happen at a certain time that they didn't happen, and that fills me with a lot of bad feelings. Plus, just that feeling of like, well, I better catch up and make up for lost time, because it's one of those, like, we can act like these things are optional, but they're not. And certain realities will catch up if we don't realize that. But yeah, it's kind of a personal disappointment, as well as just, I didn't ask to live in this time period.
Oh, yes, you did. You didn't get here by accident.
You've lived in both. You've lived in multiples.
You're in all of them right now.
Right now, baby.
Well, I know, and I put down the present a lot, but objectively, there's never been a better time.
You're an old soul.
Yes, I would say so.
A few minutes ago, I felt like you were speaking to us about your life purpose.
Yes.
And some of the things within your life purpose were to encourage higher human ideals.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, expand upon that, will you? How does that look? How do you participate in that? What do you do? What is the path of that purpose?
That's a good way to phrase it, the path of the purpose. I'm going to have to remember that. Well, for me, last year, and I would recommend all of you in Video Land to do the same. What I did last year was I completely redecorated my place. Not humongous by any means, but I completely redecorated it, and I collected a bunch of things that were related to religion, mythology, history, art, anything that was vaguely fantastical, but also historical, things that last. That's what I'm interested now in. I do not care about that which is ephemeral and can just be taken away very quickly. I'm interested in things that have lasted for a reason, and preferably things that have that theme of ascension and endurance and things like that. So I have massive tapestries on my walls. I have custom printed pillows. Anybody who knows me, I've probably shown them to you by now. But it's all in service of that belief, and it has made my interior space a beautiful and hopefully inspiring quasi, like, partially cathedral, partially art museum, partially regular museum, all in service of that belief, and just the idea that your space should be a reflection of your inner world and that which you want to see in the world, and preferably a higher order version of what that is, and make it as beautiful and inspiring as you possibly can, for your own sake, to encourage good mental health, as well as anybody else that you happen to come across. that's a big part of the pathway.
That sounds like an early step on the path of the purpose.
Very early.
Take a few more steps down the path. What does that look like?
So then the next step is just making sure that you yourself know what your values are. And I did that. I wrote out like 10 of them, and I don't have time to go into all of them, but it was just a way to know where I personally stand, and that which I will tolerate and that which I will not. Mostly I try to frame it positively because that generally works better, and it's just better for your own mind because it's very easy to be critical. I actually am a very critical person by nature, trying not to be, trying to frame things more like this is who I am, what I'm about, what I advocate for, because it's easy to tear down, it's a lot harder to build up. And so that's what I'm trying to do. But that's knowing where you stand on certain things is critical, and then being able to share it one-on-one with people in a way that is not just you reciting a script. It's sincere, and you try to get to know people more intimately and just remind them of something that people are not used to hearing these days, which is that they have a light within them that can illuminate the whole world. They are a reflection of something greater than themselves, and they can embody that every day, and they don't have to settle for less. So that's another part of the pathway.
Amen.
Then probably the next step, which is where I'm kind of at now, is how do you get that message out in a wider medium, and how does it permeate everything you do, which obviously this is one way, this kind of thing. It's also in the content that I'm going to be making in the next several years, as well as, I don't know, just even in one-on-one YouTube content, as well as just even one-on-one conversations. It's got to be part of everything you do in your life. And
you sound like you have a bit of a teacher soul of you.
My dad was a high school English teacher, and so that instinct is definitely in me. I feel it. And then meanwhile, my mom was in the newspapers, and so I kind of got that teacher / mass media mix,
So could it be the further you go down your path of purpose,
the less the anxiety,
the more desirable you become to the people that you want in your life,
and like a
person to help fulfill a relationship?
Yes. Well, and the people who are meant to be in your life. Because the other thing that you have to factor in is the fact that there's no such thing as a message that will resonate with everyone. That's just impossible. No matter what you say, someone will not like it, or will think you are just the worst person who ever lived. And then for other people, you'll be the person who saved their life. You have to focus on that which you want to focus on the second group. But it's right now the stage I'm in is trying to just figure out how to best tailor the message in a way that can be the most effective. Because there was a quote of Neil deGrasse Tyson's relatively recently, maybe a few months ago. He was quoting his, I think, grandfather, and they really stuck with me. But he said, "It's not enough to be right. You have to also be effective." And I think, that really stuck with me, because you can totally be right all day long, but if it falls on deaf ears or it's not resonating, then it's useless. So that's kind of the stage I'm in now. But yes, to answer your question, yes, if I can get over that particular hurdle, then it will surely attract the kinds of people in general.
Say what
into
hurdle?
My life. Just trying to make the message what I want it to be, and to say it in the way that I mean it. Because again, you can say things angrily, or you can say things positively, and I want to overcome my natural inclination to be because I grew up, again, very fear-based world, and so it's very easy to hold up the sign that says the end is nigh. It's very easy to do that. Now you can't, but you can't also try to put forth the prescription without saying what the problem is first. So it's like that delicate mix. But so I'm trying to figure out just how best to illustrate to people that yes, these problems we're facing are serious, and we can't ignore them, but at the same time, there is a way out of it, so it's like putting the emphasis in the right place, making it understood by as many people as you can, hopefully pointing out the flaws in your own argument, and making it to where the people who need to hear it, and hopefully their lives improve. And that matters more to me than anything in my own life, actually, because like I would rather that those ideas got out there far and wide and forget about me as a person. I myself am not important. These ideas are what's important.
So that's good.
Mhm. Mhm.
So do you believe that if you were to focus more on your path of progress, that you'd have less time for fear and anxiety of of
Yeah,
not finding a relationship in your life?
I would, and also, the right person for me would resonate with that, and I know I need to put my energies towards that. It's one of those things that other thing I've noticed about myself is when I'm overworked or I have too much to do or whatever, my brain goes to bad places, and I assume that I'm not the only one who does that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and also just certain instances where it's like you go to so and so's birthday party and you see that girl or that boy or whatever it is that person you were interested in at one point, and it didn't work out, but you still see him, and so it's like, well, your mind can, do cartwheels, and that kind of stuff, and just things like that don't help.
You
of
go home
course.
and masturbate to them.
Maybe you do. But it's or maybe your heart's just so broken that it's like to do that would be a betrayal of your values, but it's point is like sometimes things like that can come up that make it to where you can kind of get thrown off course, but the quest is always there. And but yeah, that is kind of where I want to get more to, that place of like focusing on the ultimate message. But then there's a corollary to that, which is it's okay to have a little fun too. It's okay to do things that don't necessarily have to,
Makes sense.
or things that don't necessarily have to have like your main message attached to it. It's okay to like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, if I were to use like, Spielberg could make
Mhm.
Schindler's List, or he could make Catch Me If You Can. One is obviously more heavy and serious than the other, but they have their value.
They're both divine in the universe.
Yeah, they have their purpose. It's not the exact same thing, but it's not really meant to be. So it's okay to have a little fun. It's okay to create things that are not necessarily, not everything has to be in service of that greater mission, but you can't allow yourself to get distracted too. And I feel like just some of the struggles of day-to-day life, so I live alone. I don't have someone who can clean the house for me and stuff like that, so it's like, well, you have to just deal with life too.
May I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, Joe.
So, just like listening to you and just feeling the energy and all that, would it resonate with you? Like, to me, it feels like you're still hurt,
Yes.
and there's still a lot of residual with that, and so that hurt creates fear of being hurt again. And it seems like the core fear behind that is that maybe you're afraid you're not good enough for all this stuff that you want for your life.
It's very possible. I mean, I struggled with that a lot in my kind of earlier years. And yeah, that's again, the pain does not. So, like, when it first happened, it was so strong that I could barely function in my life. And it stayed with me pretty raw for a long, long time. And now it feels more like, like the shark. The shark took a bite out of you, and there's the scar right there.
Yeah, it gets a little numb after a
It
while.
does, but
But
it
it's still there.
yeah, it never really goes away. And there's
And I
certain.
think we kind of like, it's not that it's numb, I think we become desensitized to it.
Well, it's a little bit like, I guess the best way to say it is like if you, the guy who walks with a limp, because of like and if he moves a certain way, you can still feel it, where it was, that's kind of how it is. And so I feel like I've had to be in like emotional, physical therapy for a while, and it's
So piggybacking on that,
yeah,
like you have like a lot of ideas of what your life should be
Yes.
and what would make you happy. And one of the things that I've started to like play with and realize is like there's a higher purpose for everybody,
Yeah.
but oftentimes it's not what they think it is. And when I personally have gotten stuck in this rigid idea of what I should be doing and what my life would be, I call it my bloated nothingness. I was putting my bloated nothingness in the way of my good. Like,
Yeah.
and oftentimes when things worked out, it was not what I thought. But when it did work out, I was like, wow, that's way better than what I thought.
Yeah, and it's where the expression "let go, let God" comes from. You know.
Yeah, that's another way of saying it. But yeah, like having, whether it's like, whether you believe in like the power of manifestation, or whether you're Christian or Buddhist or a Muslim or whatever somebody's spiritual belief, I think one of the things that people often fail at is like the whole faith part. What does faith really mean?
Yeah.
People mistake faith and think it's some sort of dogma. But faith isn't dogma. Faith is just having a belief that I'm good enough and things can and will work out for me if I trust.
Yes.
And I'm able to visualize what my good is.
And that's what I struggle with a lot. I never really had a concept of faith up until maybe relatively recently, and and I was like,
you mean faith in like a God or a higher power or what?
Yeah, and also faith in just that things would work out somehow, just so kind of both. But it was, but it was more. I was like full on skeptical in my 20s and stuff like that, just wanting to disprove everything. But it's good training insofar as you don't easily get taken advantage of by people, but at the same time, it does close you off to that which can come your way when you're least expecting it. So a good stepping stone out of that, what I developed anyway, was faith is simply the idea that somehow, some way, things will be all right. And that's what I've tried to, I think that's not asking too much, and it's something that it's a good little training wheels for a deeper sense of trust, like what you're talking about, which I still often struggle with, as far as, especially in that realm. I always think about the people who really do end up alone, and the people who, and then the counter argument is, well, they ended up alone because they didn't believe. Maybe that's true, but it's
inspiration. I'm 50, right? So in my 20s were shit. Like as far as dating and all that kind of stuff, I spent most of that in a pretty bad relationship.
Most people's 20s apparently are shit.
My 30s until like my mid 40s were the most amazing. I had the most amazing, beautiful romances through that time period. None of them were lasting, but I'm so grateful that I had them. It was just really a lot of beautiful people, and it was so hopefully that will inspire you, because you're 32. Like, you shouldn't be thinking like, you whippersnappers got it good. You got like you're in your prime, dude.
That's what I keep hearing, and it's just I got to get my brain to believe it. And
yeah, you're good enough.
Well, not only that,
you're
but
good enough.
Not only that, but also just understand that the world is a fundamentally different place from the way I would like it to be, and
it doesn't matter.
It's always been that way.
Accept the world exactly as it is, and work with what you got.
Yeah, accept the time period you're living in, and also accept the cards that life deals you. Some of which are good, some of which are bad, and you have to play the hand you're dealt. And
some of us come from other planets.
You gotta know when to hold them.
Know when to fold them. And know when to walk away and know when to run. But exactly. I know.
I've got an empathetic comment, and then I'm probably going to ask you a couple of questions.
Okay.
I reserve the right to ask more than one if you don't mind.
Sign on the dotted line.
No.
Some banker shit.
Rejected. Go ahead.
Anyway, I realize you're a man, and you have, with all respect to Heather, a nice, wonderful person born into a female body here tonight. there's societal pressure if you're a female from like, actually having a child perspective.
Wait, say the first part again.
I said, there's societal expect pressure on females.
Female body.
I said that Heather's the only wonderful person here who was born into a female body.
Sorry.
So,
I was that's I missed someone's name. Okay, that's who it was.
So, biologically, there's like pressure as a female for biological clock, but men have the same pressure too because, generally speaking, you want to meet someone around your age and they don't have a lot of baggage. Men have biological clock pressure too. When I moved to Charlotte, I was young and single. I could barely afford to live here, but I was actually right after divorce number one. Divorce number one was brief, and there's no money or children to fight about. So I'm very empathetic to the engagement thing that you went through.
Yeah.
So and so my comment, I recognize I'm at a very different point in my life than you are. And have been grown up in a very different environment than you have. But that does segue back into, my comments about like the grind. I mean, you just got to hustle. And trying to get everything that I do have, but that you don't would like to have, but don't, kind of wears you down, and it's not all it's cracked up to be.
More money, more problems.
Well, and honestly, too, we do have a child, but we struggled forever. We had to do IVF. And in retrospect, I'm glad we only have one child. I don't know how anybody makes it. I do not know. And I tell younger people all the time, I just look at them and go, you have more than one child?
Well, somehow those quiverful folks seem to pull it off. Not recommending that as a...
Those quiverful folks have a whole lot more optimism in their life than reality leads than I think they should have. Yeah. With all respect to my esteemed friend Jason here, one time when we first met, he made a comment to the effect of, I thought you were retired. And I was like, Jason, I don't know if I'm grossly offended that I look so much older than I really am, or if you vastly overrated my economic success in life. So I'm like, damn, I don't know what that meant. But
I'll say
maybe
this.
It was just a daytime yoga class we were at. Man.
It probably was.
I'll say this much: I'm deeply, deeply thankful for the job I have because they treat me well, and it's like it's a job that it allows me to do everything that I know how to do with a bunch of good company that's doing good work. I'm not at all wealthy. Would love to be, and that's kind of why I'm hoping. Well, if I do this other stuff that I'm wanting to do that well, it could maybe go to take off somehow. I would hope so, but no, it's just it's sad to me that these basic fundamental things about being alive are now the luxuries of the rich.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so I guess in general, I was going to say, don't put pressure on yourself because some perceived male biological clock, because I think that's an issue that you're just sort of putting on yourself. And I understand it because I was there once.
Yeah.
And because, when I moved here, I was like in the biological clock position, trying to find somebody who's compatible with me and blah, 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 blah. And
we always want what we want.
Whether or not I made the right choice is another topic for another discussion. But we'll go back to
we will talk about that.
Yeah, we ain't talking about that tonight. But anyway, you do mention though that you feel like you have a lot of self-judgment. I think I may have commented. I know I've commented to some other people here. I don't remember if you were around when I said it, but I've had multiple therapists tell me that I'm harder on myself than anybody else in the world.
Yeah, we're all our own worst critics.
Yeah. And I was also very religious when I was young. And
what were you?
Southern Baptist.
I was Catholic.
Oh, okay. Well, they were about as bad. Anyway,
they have their own unique flavor.
Oh yeah. And
rock paper
anyway, so I wonder. I think it's highly likely in my case that a lot of my self-judgment is lingering from like guilt that the church imprinted my mind, and my parents imprinted that because they thought they were doing the right thing.
Yeah.
I bet you have the same life experience, don't you?
Very similar, just again different flavor, but I think my parents were probably temperamentally that way. I don't think that because they're not Catholic anymore; they're evangelicals. But I think that their temperament would have probably been that way regardless of what their particular denomination was. But I think that I'll say this much: Catholicism is very rules oriented, and So on the one hand, it can be very restrictive. On the other hand, you do kind of get this sense of forward progression, and that is something that I do miss. Is that sense of like I'm doing the right thing, and if I just do these steps, then I'll get to where I want to go.
Yeah.
You get into the real world, and you find that the pathway is not always clear, and that there's a lot of zigs and zags and hills and valleys and all that stuff. It's not a ladder that you can just climb. So that's a very important lesson to learn. But at the same time, I try to hold on to the good as much as I can, insofar as like, well, there are certain values that get communicated to you, and certain senses of, because I've seen people that live who didn't ever come from that background at all, and it's like, well, then their sense of, sometimes I feel like they lack perspective on just how bad things can get or whatever. That could just be me. You may disagree with that, but point is, yeah, I do think that's one of the unintended consequences, is a lot of feeling like you could be better than you are and beating yourself up when you're not. I think I was a lot worse at that when I was younger. Nowadays, I think maybe because I've seen enough counter evidence of things that I wanted that didn't come in my time, but they came in God's time, the universe's time, whatever you want to say. They did come later, and so it's like, well, just the lesson I'm trying to learn is, it's again part of that trust, is trying to make it to where the things don't have to come to you right this minute. They can, and they may not come in the form that you expected, but they can still make their way there. I guess in that particular realm, when it comes to relationships, you're having to deal with so many variables of like another person, and you can never get the one you want, and it's never in the time you want, and and there is I think the male biological clock is more of like status and appeal, rather than can I actually have a child safely, that kind of stuff. It is different, but you're right, it's there. But yeah, I guess that's something to ponder further, is, do I feel like I really deserve it? I mean, I think I want it more than most people do, and I think I have the right predisposition to handle it. It's just a matter of, do they make someone like what I want? Do they make them for people like me? Yeah. And that's the deeper question. Sometimes I feel like,
do they make what?
Someone that I would like, a good partner. Are they made for someone like me? And I have tended to feel like the answer was no, but now I'm getting to a place of yes, because I'm learning to love myself and take care of myself as though I mattered, and therefore I can share it with other people.
Can he find neurospicy harmony?
What the heck is that?
That's the question.
Sounds great.
Neurospicy harmony.
That is a new one.
It sounds like a delicious drink.
Sounds like a salsa.
Neurospicy is a term for people that aren't ashamed of being spectrum and know everybody's on it somewhere. and it can be a dog whistle. It can be a call out to your people, to people that really get you and understand you. And if you know that your mind operates in these kinds of patterns, looking for people that operate in those kind of patterns as well can be very helpful.
Yeah.
What would you say you've spent more time thinking about? Your path of progress, or your anxiety and fear of not having a relationship?
The positive or the negative?
I think the historical answer is far in favor of the anxiety. I think that the pathway now is trying to, make that mission first and foremost. I mean, certainly just trying to, part of it is how it manifests in my everyday life is just simply working out a lot, and like getting into good physical shape, and therefore you feel good about yourself. That one is like, yeah, if you put in the work, you will get where you want to go eventually. There's a strict 1-to-1 comparison there, and I do like that simplicity. And that's really comforting, because again, there are so many variables when it comes to other people. That is pretty cut and dry. So that's part of it, is being on that part of the path. and trying to hopefully create the conditions by which those positive thoughts and feelings can come about. I don't think I'm always that good at it. I think that the anxiety takes hold a lot more than it should, and that's something I want to work on. And I guess maybe you do, like, every time that your mind goes to that place, you think about your mission instead. Maybe there's got to be some workaround that could work for me.
When you do start having those feelings,
Yes.
how quickly can you start noticing them?
I notice them right away. It's more of just
Well, then after you notice them, how quickly can you set them free?
Good question. So another thing I should mention is that the ability for them to completely overwhelm me has reduced significantly because of the exercise and because of proper diet and omega-3 supplements, magnesium before bed, just getting proper nutrition, proper sleep, cutting out bad things. That creates the physical conditions by which, if bad thoughts, anxiety feelings, if those come, then they're nowhere near as intense as they otherwise would be. So that's a big win in my area.
Mm-hmm.
So then the question is, well, the residual thoughts and feelings, they are not as intense as they were, and they don't stick around as long. The question is, can you, and I've heard different answers on this, it's like, can you make them go away? Should you make them go away? Because a lot of what I hear now is maybe you shouldn't make them go away. They should, let them be heard and then allow them to pass.
Integrated.
Yes, integrate. And that's something I am trying to work on as well, because my classical answer is just make the pain go away, but
that's why people drink and do drugs and all other sorts of obsessive compulsive behaviors,
which I've never done, and I'm thankful for that. But yeah, it's, well, the metaphor that I remembered using to a friend was, remember in The Sixth Sense how Cole wants the ghosts to go away and tries to do everything he can to make them go away, and his, Dr. Malcolm, what does he say? He says, I think you should try listening to them. And in a lot of ways, our bad emotions and stuff, that is what they're like, the ghosts that just want to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
And, so that's something I don't think I'm good at that yet. I'm trying to get good at that, just allowing those feelings to be heard and then allow them to pass. That's new for me, and I'm trying to get there.
That's the key. So it can come. Have you ever done breath work? Or?
I have, when I've meditated, in yoga, we do that a lot. And that's another thing. Meditation helped me a lot. I need to get back into that habit. 'Cause every time I did, I would always come away with really good thoughts, feelings, sensations. I'm going to get back into that habit because I think that would sort me out a lot. And breath work is obviously a big part of it.
Yep. I have a question.
Yes.
Not be excessively nosy, but did you say you're on magnesium?
I take it before bed because it helps you to sleep better.
I have heard that it also helps with depression.
Yes, it does.
It does.
Yeah. That and omega-3 helps a lot with your brain health. It helps with your cognition.
I'm familiar with omega-3. I'm not super concerned about that.
Well, it helped me a lot. It cleared out a lot of brain fog.
I only asked that because I've read that magnesium helps, but you're the only person that I've actually talked to, so I want to get the first-hand response from you.
Highly recommend it. Look for the high absorption kind.
Magnesium is salt, and it's a crystal,
Mm-hmm.
so you're either ingesting it or you're bathing in it. It's a crystal, so it conducts energy, and your brain operates based on electrical charges, and the space in between your neurons is a negative charge, and what gives it the negative charge is salt.
Mm-hmm.
And so the more salt, the more magnesium you have in your system, the more efficiently your neurons communicate.
Yeah. And the high absorption kind is the best and take it with dinner because it absorbs best with a meal. And then
Be careful though, because it is a diuretic.
Yeah, but I drink a lot of tea, so I'm kind of used to that. But I will say this: I don't wake up in the middle of the night anymore, and I don't fret in the middle of the night like I used to. Like I sleep through the night after taking magnesium. Like it's like a wonder. Now, I say a wonder drug, but it's just a natural supplement. But it work if you use it right. It works, and you're in. Because that's another thing you don't really know about me. I struggled for almost my whole life with sleep. Like especially as a kid, hugely overactive imagination, could not sleep, fundamentally could not sleep. And, you know, it got a little better as I got older, but I still had problems with it. This magnesium, it like cleared it right up. And, so now I sleep through the night. I get up when I'm supposed to. And then the omega-3, it cleared away the brain fog, and it makes it to where when I have anxiety or depressive feelings or anger feelings, they're not anywhere near as intense as they would be, and they're easier to get over. So,
well, thank you. I need to try that then because thank you for the endorsement. And also, most of my life I slept pretty good until financial crisis, blah blah blah,
yeah,
financial responsibilities. For several years, I really just didn't sleep well at all. And honestly, a lot of times I drank more than I should. That messes up your blood sugars and you can't sleep well, man. And in retrospect, I realized that I was really stressed out. I was in a bad place.
not good for your liver either.
I was just a really bad place. Just a really bad place.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, thank you. So, what I was going to say is,
I'll send you a link to the magnesium that I got.
Oh, well, that's fine. Yeah, I'll find it because I've been reading about it. I was saying I may even stop on the way home to get some tonight.
Yeah, do it. You can find it super easily. So.
A key way, though, to see, I typically take a Benadryl. So if I take a Benadryl, I can go to sleep. Well, if I don't take a Benadryl, I go to sleep, but then I'll wake up in the middle of the night and stay up for a long time. But when I take a Benadryl, I'll sleep all night. And I think magnesium is probably better. I need to try that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, magnesium is better, and it's also, if you do, because I've done the Benadryl thing too. Yeah. The problem with it is the more you do it, the less effective it is, and so you'd have to get off of it for a while for it to get effective again. And fundamentally, you need Benadryl for what it's meant to do.
Yeah.
Magnesium is just a natural thing and you do kind of need the supplement because it's kind of difficult to get naturally. But you do it that way at that time. As someone with sleep problems for a long time, cleared me right up. And that plus the exercise plus the diet made it to where whatever bad feelings I have far less than they were, because there are times where it would feel like it was an attack, and now not so much, which is really good. Obviously not out of the woods yet, but yeah, I think for me it's more of that feeling of, is it my destiny to have this that I want so badly? Because it may not be my destiny, and that would be deeply disappointing. It would be extremely painful. I don't know what tomorrow brings.
Is what your destiny?
To find the kind of person I want and to have the kind of life I want. Preferably, don't want to just live a life alone. So that's number one. And then number two, that I have to keep living in a world that fundamentally just doesn't understand the things that we would never have questioned in times past, and just how every time I try to explain it, I come across like I'm from Mars or something. And it's like, it's a very just simple, straightforward thing in my eyes. But
you're on another timeline.
It feels like it, yeah. I feel like I would have done well in a different time period, but you have to live in the era you're living in, and it's not all bad. There's a lot of stuff in this modern world that we did figure out, and things that we're on a path to bettering ourselves and creating a world that's more fair, more, this and that.
That's what it feels like when you talk about like the good old days of the past. It feels like you probably were quintessentially very successful in that timeline.
I hope so.
And you are in this timeline to figure out just a new way of operation,
while hopefully preserving some of the things that did work, that I would still like to keep. That obviously you don't have to, because you're right that the way that things were. Nostalgia is a very seductive thing, it's also a very deceptive thing, because you objectively look at the past, most of it was demonstrably worse than it is now. Most of it was.
Well, way more war and violence, and like nobody talked about trauma back then. Well, they just said, "Shut the fuck up and deal with it."
Yeah, discrimination, lack of human rights, and all kinds of bad things. Science, technology, medicine. You could go on and on. I mean, so it's I'm aware of that. It's a very deceptive thing. It's also a very seductive thing, because you're deliberately highlighting the good parts and leaving out all the bad. And I don't want to do that, and I also don't want to leave out all the good that's around in the world today, because like I said, there's never been a better time to be alive if we're talking strictly science, technology, just the ability to thrive, mass communication. It's more of just, I do think we need a change of spirit, and that's obviously kind of what we're doing here in our own way. And so that's why I would just like it if I could say that to someone and they would understand, and that, because I feel like too many people these days are kind of, they're either sentencing themselves or they are being sentenced to living this life of loneliness and unfulfillment. And if we're not careful, we're all going to pay the price for that, because we won't have a society at that point. But it's why I want to be on the side that is fighting against all that, and preferably to have it not be self-inflicted. But it starts with me. It's got to start with me, and conquering my own demons.
Amen. Thank you. Anybody else got anything for him?
Felt like I went on for a long time, but hopefully it was.
That's why we're here, brother. That's why we're here. Great job.
Let's wrap it up with one final thing for you, Dane, and that is what's the best good thing that you just learned about yourself right now from this session?
That I'm probably, and people have said this about me, but just hearing it out loud, that I'm probably further along than I think I am. And that, like someone said, that, this is like the prime time for that sort of thing to come about, which I've also been told. But it's also just knowing that I have a purpose now in a way that I did not during those critical years. What?
Oh, that was beautiful, dude.
I just heard a buzzing sound. I was like,
no, that wasn't.
Yeah, I thought you were doing an Austin Powers. I was like, were you going to interject? But yeah, I think just hearing it out loud, I probably am a lot further along than I think I am, and that, there's no real reason to despair. There's always going to be bad things in the world. I mean, as bad as COVID was, it was not as bad as, say, the bubonic plague, like relatively speaking, because the populations were different, of course, but in terms of percentages, it was like that wiped out a third of Europe, and
exactly.
I'm pretty sure the population actually increased during COVID.
Everything is relative.
Yeah, and just count the number one thing I try to tell other people and myself is count your blessings.
Amen.
Yeah, because
let's give it up for Dane, everybody.
Thank you, brother.
You like the two-tone mask look?
It's gorgeous.
Can we get a round of applause for that?
It's gorgeous.
I think 3 or 4 tone next time.
It's gorgeous.
Every time we do this stuff, it's always such a pleasure. Such interesting stories. The kind of people that are drawn to these kinds of events are just such interesting people. You're all interesting people. Thank you for just like showing up and just hanging out and bringing your energy. Spiritual expansion is a part of Big Love Yoga Barn, and Big Love Yoga Barn is a nonprofit that is getting ready to relocate a whole new building, and we've got lots of big projects coming up in the future. So for tonight's event, if you would so choose, please send a donation to any of these normal digital methods. Some of that donation goes to Big Love Yoga Barn and your facilitators of the evening. So thank you very much. This is our regular new Soul Sauce format. We're going to continue to do this. We're going to continue to have other events here at the Creation Station. When summertime comes up, we'll have some nice big outdoor stuff, some barbecuing going on, plus all kinds of other new stuff that's going to be happening at Big Love Yoga Barn. So you're all family. Love you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Namaste. Thank you all.